Have you ever wondered why we're all so different? I mean, you've got one person who's the life of the party and another who'd rather be a quiet observer. Some of us worry about everything, while others seem completely fearless. So is all this just random? An accident of how we were born and raised? Well, today we're going to dig into a really powerful idea, that your personality isn't an accident at all. It's actually a strategy, one that's been shaped and fine-tuned by millions of years of evolution.
Okay, so let's just dive right into the central puzzle, the big question. We've all heard the phrase survival of the fittest, right? It kind of makes it sound like natural selection is this process that filters out the bad traits and keeps only the best ones. But if that's true, why isn't there just one single optimal human personality? Why hasn't evolution just made us all the same? That's the mystery we're going to try to solve.
Now, to crack this puzzle, we first need the right tools for the job. So let's quickly put together our evolutionary toolkit. There are just a few key concepts we need to have in our back pocket.
To really get this from an evolutionary angle, we have to learn to ask two different kinds of questions. See, psychology has traditionally focused on what we call proximate questions. These are the how questions. How does personality actually work in the brain? How does it develop from childhood? And these are super important. But evolutionary theory adds this whole other layer, ultimate questions. These are the why questions. Why do we even have these brain mechanisms at all? What purpose, what adaptive function did they serve for our ancestors that made them stick around? You really can't understand a system until you know both how it works and why it was built that way to begin with.
Okay, next tool in our kit, the idea of an adaptation. An adaptation isn't just some random trait that happens to be useful. No, it's a piece of biological machinery that was specifically designed by natural selection to solve a very specific, recurring problem. The classic example is the heart, right? Its function isn't just a happy accident, it evolved because its pumping action solved the critical, recurring problem of circulating blood. And as we're going to see, a lot of our psychology is made up of adaptations too, tools designed to solve social problems.
And finally, we need a little shift in perspective. From a modern evolutionary view, the individual isn't really the star of the show. The gene is. This idea, inclusive fitness, is all about how genes succeed. And it's not just by helping the individual they're in to survive and have kids, it's also about helping other individuals who share those same genes, like your brothers, sisters, and cousins, to reproduce. This gene's eye view, as it's called, is absolutely key to understanding why things like cooperation and even self-sacrifice could evolve in the first place.
All right, toolkit assembled. Now we can finally start our investigation. Let's look at the three main clues that evolutionary theory offers up for why we see so much variation in personality.
Our investigation is going to follow these three main leads. We'll start with the simplest idea, that it's just a random side effect, then move to something more interesting, strategic trade-offs, and finally, we'll get to the really complex stuff, a social balancing act.
So our first clue is the possibility that some of this variation is, well, just noise. Think of it like this. New genetic mutations are always popping up, kind of like typos in a book. Natural selection is the proofreader, slowly going through and cleaning them up. But because new typos happen at a pretty steady rate, there's always going to be some level of random variation floating around. This mutation-selection balance could definitely account for some of the minor, non-adaptive differences we see in personality.
But that can't be the whole story, right? It feels like there's more to it. And our second clue is way more powerful. The idea of strategic trade-offs. This is a core part of what's called balancing selection. Just take extroversion. The pros are pretty obvious, right? More chances to find a mate, higher social status, more friends and allies. But there are some serious cons, too. You might get into more fights, expose yourself to more diseases, and have more social drama. The point is, there's no single best level of extroversion for every person in every situation. The best strategy always depends on the environment, which creates a constant trade-off.
And this leads us straight to our third clue, the social balancing act. In biology, this is called frequency-dependent selection. Basically, the best strategy often depends on what everyone else is doing. Think about it. If you're in a social group that has a preponderance of ambitious, assertive, and dominant extroverts, that could actually create a niche for low extroversion individuals benefiting from a cautious, silent, secretive approach to life. When a certain strategy is rare, it can be super effective. And this dynamic ensures that different personality types are kept in the mix over evolutionary time.
So we've got our three clues: random noise, strategic trade-offs, and a social balancing act. They all help explain variation. But now, we're going to make a huge pivot. Because what if the very way we think about personality, as a collection of traits, is actually the problem?
Just chew on that for a second. We talk about people having a certain amount of extroversion or agreeableness, as if it's some fixed quantity, like height. But what if that's just a descriptive label we've put on things, and not a real explanation of the machinery underneath?
So this slide lays out the two approaches perfectly. The traditional top-down view starts with a big label, like agreeableness, and then tries to explain what it is and what behaviors it predicts. But this newer, ground-up adaptationist approach flips that whole thing on its head. It totally ignores the labels. It starts with the fundamental problem our ancestors faced, something like, how do I bargain to get treated better? And then it works its way up to figure out the specific psychological program designed to solve that problem. Let's see how that works in practice.
Let's use anger as a perfect case study. From this ground-up view, anger isn't just some messy emotion or a trait of disagreeable people. No, it's seen as a highly engineered computational program that has a very, very specific evolved function.
So what's the input? What flips the switch on the anger program? Well, it's not just anything bad happening. The specific trigger is the perception that someone is treating you as less valuable than you deserve to be treated. Your mind basically runs a calculation, finds a mismatch, and bam, the program fires up.
And what's the output? What's the point of it all? The ultimate function of anger is to make you do things. Maybe inflict a cost on that person. Maybe withhold something they want. That is designed to force them to recalibrate how much they value you, upwards. Anger, when you get down to it, is a bargaining tool. It's designed to make others treat you better. So if anger is a program we all have, what explains why some people seem so much more anger-prone than others? Okay, this is where it gets really, really fascinating. The answer seems to be in what researchers call internal regulatory variables, or IRVs. The best way to think about them is like an internal dashboard in your mind, with all these gauges that are constantly tracking key information about your place in the world.
So imagine this mental dashboard. It's got different gauges. You've got a power index that's tracking your overall bargaining power, your ability to help or harm other people. If that index is reading high, your anger program might be calibrated to fire off much more quickly when you feel disrespected. You've got a mate value index that tunes how jealous you get, and an inclusion index that adjusts how motivated you are to cooperate with a group. Here's the crucial point. Those individual differences we see aren't fixed traits. They're the real-time output of these universal programs, all calibrated by your own unique life circumstances.
Okay, let's bring it all home now. Let's put all these pieces together to finally solve our puzzle and really understand what your adaptive personality is all about. So, here are the key takeaways. First off, personality variation isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's the whole set of solutions produced by evolution, not just random noise. These differences we see are shaped by all those strategic trade-offs and the complex balancing act of social life. And those traits we're always talking about, they're really just convenient labels for the output of these much deeper universal psychological programs. And maybe most importantly, these programs are tuned by those internal gauges, the IRVs, which are calibrated to your specific body, your social world, and your environment. All this means your personality isn't some static blueprint you were born with. It's a living, breathing, dynamic strategy for navigating the social world.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. If your personality isn't something you are, but a strategy you deploy, a constantly evolving response to the unique challenges and opportunities that you face, what game are you playing? And is your strategy working?